game, but also AI for good, which is why we host competitions like this, which are a mix of learning and doing and collaborating. This challenge has three UN SDGs that we are focusing on: life on land, climate action, which is very close to you, I know, Smriti. And the third one is peace, justice, and strong institutions. So I thought it was a very apt person that we have here today with us to kick off our event, Miss Smriti Mishra. She is the head of AI at Earth Blanc, which is a climate fintech. Now, that's a fancy term, no, children, which you don't know what that means. So what that means is that Smriti uses her AI knowledge to help track carbon footprints. And if I'm saying something wrong, she is most welcome to correct me when she introduces herself. She also believes very passionately about climate action, mental health, and a lot of the SDGs. So she decided that she is going to use her knowledge of AI to help in this UN SDGs. She is also the founder of a company called AI Guild, which is a community of data scientists. So I'm not going to stop talking. I'm going to allow Smriti to talk to you and inspire you with her work. Thank you, Smriti, for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Supriya. It's really nice to be here, first of all. Yeah, so can I share my screen?
Yes.
Yes, your co-host, you should be able to share your screen.
Oh, just a second. I actually just reset my laptop, so now I have to do a lot of things. I'll be right back in the meeting.
Kids, please don't be shy. Please ask her all the questions you want. Raise your hand and everything. Okay?
Miss, can you please show her profile?
Yes.
Yeah, so sorry about that. So since my laptop was not working fine for a while and I just got it a few days back, so I had to do a lot of resets. So can I share my screen now? Yeah, awesome. Okay, you see Safari now for no reason. So hi, I work at Earth Blanc, which is a climate fintech, as Supriya mentioned, and also a space tech firm which enables individuals as well as organizations to offset their carbon footprint. So what that essentially means is that as humans, we do a lot of activities, right? Like where I stay right now, I'm in India, and the temperature is 35 degrees. So I can't really sleep without an air conditioner. So I use it. But then that emits a lot of carbon dioxide into the environment, which is really bad. So in order to make sure that I compensate for the carbon dioxide that has been emitted in the environment because of me, I can plant trees or I can do some other activities which offset my personal carbon footprint. So what we do is we use artificial intelligence and satellite imagery, like other remote sensing metrics, etc., to make better financial and climate friendly decisions. So we provide like really enhanced and advanced carbon offset metrics to organizations so that they can understand what's the best way for them to invest in carbon and climate science. So now, also at Earth Bank, we brought together experience in community resilience and regenerative work, as well as unique financial instruments in order to incentivize the work of people who are putting in a lot of efforts for sustainable farming, sustainable agriculture, etc. The people who are actually planting trees on the ground. So, so those people. So we verify the carbon that's been generated, so that if someone wants to, like buy those footprints, so like buy those carbon credits in order to offset their footprints, they can accurately do that. So right now, we have to, in 10 years, we have to offset 300 gigatons of carbon, which is like a lot. So basically, today we live in our world where climate change is in the background of a lot of huge problems that we're already facing. Even this pandemic, for example, it has been accelerated so much because of climate change. We therefore need to accelerate and amplify our strategies for increasing social impact. And using technology is a very nice way to actually work towards it. And climate change affects all of us, but it affects people who who actually don't have much towards climate change. People who don't contribute a lot towards climate change, they are the one who are somehow disproportionately affected the most. So for example, people who are living in like underdeveloped countries like Africa, etc., they have a lot of problems because of it. There are some people who get like really less money a day, and they don't even have access to clean water right now, which is really bad. So today, one of the, so I can tell you like a little about how carbon verification works right now, right? So imagine you're all in India, like I'm assuming that all of you are in India. And so if you have like a garden, right? Which is like, imagine a slightly bigger garden and you are like planting trees there. And you want to find out how much carbon you're offsetting there. And so what you can do is, there are some ways that you can actually find out how much carbon is being sequestered or stored in that area. So earlier, if you wanted to do that, there would be a team of experts flying in from United States of America to your house, right? So that would not be very good for the environment, because imagine 25 people flying to your house. That itself is not very good for the environment. That emits a lot of carbon dioxide. Also, they would basically take some measuring tapes and measure like a little bit of the area, like measure the plants and trees, etc. And then use statistics to extrapolate the results for the larger amount of area, which isn't very accurate. Now imagine this for a larger area. For a forest, there can be forest fires, which happens a lot now because of climate change. And there can be some illegal poaching going on. So there can be a lot of problems. So the problem with this method is that it's not very accurate. Also, usually when it comes to such solutions, they are usually scattered. So it's very little area at one place. So what happens is it becomes really expensive for those people to fly in and come and do the calculations. So what we do is I mentioned all of these. So what we do is we use artificial intelligence to actually verify. We use satellite images to actually verify the amount of carbon dioxide that's been sequestered. So we are focusing on deep technology and artificial intelligence solutions, which minimizes the need of ground truthing. So basically, you don't really have to come in with huge measuring tapes and ladders and like climb on them and measure the trees, etc. So this reduces the size that's required. So minimum size requirement is reduced drastically, because now you just need satellite images, and it can be as small as, like a room, basically, that you can monitor from the space. Earlier, it used to be like 1,200 acres, which is huge. I can't even imagine how big that would be. So we basically offer a 3-stack solution that vertically aligns with each other, and it's an integrated solution to banks and corporates as well. So we have innovative carbon monitoring, reporting, and verification, which is the core of our solutions. So we fix problems in the current carbon sequestration methods and practices, etc., through our proprietary technology. So I have been working on that technology with my team, and we have a patent pending right now in 40 countries for that. And the second is a carbon marketplace. So it's not actually enough to accurately, just efficiently and accurately measure Because, like imagine you pay someone to plant trees, right? And if they don't get money over time, they would eventually, when they don't have food on their plate, they would eventually go and cut the same trees and sell them illegally for more money. So it's important to create a cash flow for them. So it's important to incentivize them, or like constantly pay them a salary for protecting those plants and trees as well. So this is where a carbon marketplace comes into picture. And the third is carbon credit audits. So what usually happens is, imagine like a huge company, like right now Covishield. So AstraZeneca is a company that worked on Covishield. AstraZeneca is a Swedish and British company. So they worked on, it's a pharmaceutical company. So it worked on Covishield along with Oxford University. So imagine a pharmaceutical company, they have like a lot of million machines running, etc. So they have a lot of carbon emissions that they can't really reduce. So what they can do is they can pledge to plant and protect the same amount of trees as much as their carbon emissions. So right now the problem is, because of all those problems that I mentioned earlier, there's no transparency in the whole process. So using artificial intelligence, we can create transparency.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
In class, we learned that in the day, trees take in carbon and let out oxygen, but in the night, they take in oxygen and emit carbon. So how does that really help? Unless you plant lots and lots and lots of trees. Because even they take in some oxygen and emit some carbon.
Yeah, so the thing is that, like we humans, we if we just consider the amount of carbon that we have been, like releasing in the environment, that might be just balanced with the whole plant thing. But right now we have like different appliances running, for example, air conditioner, or there are different companies that are running everywhere. Also, we have cut down a lot of plants and trees, so they are not enough to balance it out, right? So that is the problem.
I have a question too.
Yeah,
No,
please.
I mean, plants take in oxygen and emit carbon dioxide in the night, we learned in class. So, do they take in less carbon dioxide? Do they take in less oxygen and emit less carbon dioxide, or do they do the same for both, or do they take in more oxygen and emit more carbon dioxide?
It is not too clear. I'm so sorry. Can you please repeat the question?
Okay. In class, we learned that trees, in the day, they emit oxygen and take in carbon, but in the night, they emit carbon and take in oxygen. So, do they take in and give out in the same
It's
amount?
6:45.
Or do they take in more of one or give out more of the other? Okay. What do they?
Too clear.
Smriti, what she's trying to say is that if the trees emit carbon dioxide in the night, so then what happens then? How does that get offset?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, what's your name?
Isha.
So, Isha, that's a very nice question. So, what happens is that trees do release some carbon dioxide, but they can sequester a lot more. So, if it's like if it's like a small plant, right? It'll take in some carbon dioxide and release some oxygen, right? But if it's like a huge tree, then it'll take a lot of carbon dioxide in. So that helps a lot.
But what about the oxygen it emits in the? What about the carbon dioxide it emits in the night?
So the carbon dioxide it emits is like very low compared to how much it actually takes in. So it's actually not that bad for the environment.
I have a question too.
Yeah, please.
You said that so they would pledge that as much as carbon footprint that they emitted, those many trees they would plant, so that the trees could take in the carbon dioxide and give out more oxygen, right?
Yeah.
But isn't it after many years that that plant actually becomes a tree and takes in so much of carbon? I mean, when it's small, it doesn't like really make so much of a difference. And it takes lots of years for it to become that little sapling into a bark, I mean, into a real tree. So what about that?
So that is a very interesting question. So that is also a reason why I mentioned about the whole carbon marketplace thing, that you just don't plant trees, but it's more important to actually take care of them and make sure that they grow big. Also, there are some species, like for example, mangroves in the Sundarbans region of India, which sequester a lot more carbon. So if we go to like the indigenous or the really niche ecosystems like the Amazon forests or the mangrove regions. So they actually sequester a lot more carbon very quickly. So that's also one of the reasons that we need to focus on those areas also. But yeah, you're right, it does take some time. So if it's like a small plant, it'll sequester like 1 ton a year or something. But if it grows big, like maybe in like 5, 6, 7, 8 years, it would sequester like 10 times that. So it would definitely take some time. We have 2 more questions.
My question is that cap, can we convert carbon dioxide into oxygen using AI?
Unfortunately, we can't, but we can measure how it's like measure how much is being converted, but we can't convert it using artificial intelligence. In fact, if you use computers and everything, it actually emits carbon dioxide. So it's not that good for the environment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My question is that I didn't understand what the carbon credit audits are.
Okay, I can tell you that. So if you have like, imagine you have a garden in your house, right? And you have like 20 different plants there. So what you can do is you can get it measured and verified that those plants, how much carbon dioxide they sequester or they store, right? So it stores it and then it goes down the roots and it doesn't emit that carbon dioxide into the environment. So using artificial intelligence or some other methods, some physical methods also, you can measure that. So then what happens? Suppose you have 10 tons a year. So those 10 tons can be converted. There's some different metrics. There's voluntary carbon standard, there's gold standard, there's some different standards. So using those, they can be converted as 10 credits. So now what you can do is you can sell those 10 credits to someone who's been offsetting a lot of carbon dioxide. So that is the whole process of like auditing carbon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, even I have a question. I'm not quite understanding how you keep AI in all this.
So as I said earlier, this process of verification that I just explained, you would need some experts who would take a fly to your place. And usually most of these scientists would live in America earlier. So they would fly from, suppose, United States of America to your house in India. And then they would emit a lot of carbon dioxide traveling. And then they would just measure. And they can't, if it's like a huge forest, imagine the Amazon rainforest, it's huge. So they can't go and measure each and every tree, right? So they would measure 2% of the trees and then they would statistically extrapolate the results. So what we can do is here on the screen, you can see a satellite image. I think this is of Sundarbans. This is of mangrove region in Sundarbans. So what we can do is using artificial intelligence, we can detect the number of trees and also the height and girth, the diameter of the trees, which tells us the approximate age and everything. So using that information, we can estimate more accurately what's the amount of carbon that's been stored there.
Okay, miss, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
it is a little bit similar to the question which was just asked. My question is that how can we use it like in a game? Like we can use it in other examples, but how do we use it in a game? Like I'm thinking to make a game. So
Oh, that's very interesting. So maybe you can have like a virtual setup of all of this. Like you have a game where you can reward people. Like, okay, so
I have an idea for a game like that.
oh, that's very interesting. Do you want to discuss the idea?
So what you can do, what he just asked, like the way you sense how many trees are there, that way you can connect that same way to a particular app, and after it you have to type how many trees are there approximately, and how close you are to the number, you will get those many coins.
Oh, that is very interesting, actually. And then you can have some little tasks and everything in between, right?
Can I share my idea for my project?
Yeah.
Miss, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Miss, if you can measure how many trees and how much carbon footprint is there, but how do you do it in AI? Means I understand you send the satellite and everything, but how do you get the results and how do you manage to do it?
So actually it's like huge codes which are fun to write, but sometimes a little monotonous. So what you do is imagine you have a satellite image like the one in the screen. Maybe this is not that high resolution, so if it's like really good resolution, then you can somehow see the number of the trees, etc. So what you do, you get the images annotated or labeled, right? So if you have an image, you get it labeled like tree, road, human, tree. So now once you have labeled images, then what you can do is in satellite images, there are 13 bands. So using different bands, you can get different information. So there's one band which is called NDVI, which gives you the vegetation index. So that tells you about the vegetation, the health of vegetation, etc. So then you can have that index, and then you have panchromatic, which is like a grayscale, black and white image. So you can map those on top of each other, and then you get the count of objects. In this case, the objects would be trees. So that's one way to do it. And then there are elevation models. So using elevation models or LiDAR data, which gives you the 3D information. So now you have the number of objects, and then you have the 3D information of the objects, like the height or the distance, right? So then you can put all of these together in a model, and then that can help you get these information. You also need some information like how much carbon this species would sequester, which you can get from the internet.
I have an idea what AI can do. So you can basically invent this tool or app that zooms in the view from top. Like suppose you go in a helicopter, or the tool is connected to a satellite, and you can see how many trees are there in the land. And on this, where there is free space and plain space where there are no trees, you can make and use robots that plant trees 3 times faster than how they are usually planted.
That is very interesting. And actually, you know what? We are going to do something similar. We are going to plant trees, etc., using some drones that would fly. Yeah, so we are actually going to work on that very soon. That is very interesting.
Thank you.
Do you have a question, Ariana?
Miss, I want to say something. So, from school, I heard that if you cut 3 trees, then you should plant the double of the amount of trees you've cut, or you plant the same number.
You should always plant more trees, because if you cut, as someone mentioned here, if you cut the trees, it would take a lot more time for the plant to to that place where it'll sequester or store more carbon, right? So it should always be more. Right now, you can't find a lot of areas also to plant trees. There are like buildings everywhere. That's pretty bad.
Unless you need to plant a particular number of trees. Like if you plant so many with barely enough distance between them, there'll be no space to roam around.
And they would not have a lot of space to grow freely also, which is not good for the trees.
Yeah.
Or if you
Peony.
grow like an apple tree and the animal comes and eats it and throws the seed down, then there'll be no space and it'll all get jammed up.
Yeah, but if the animal throws the seed around, more trees will grow there. So that's how natural trees grow in the forests also. So that's not too bad. But then there won't be space. That you're right about.
Go ahead, Peony. You were
Can
waiting.
robots plant trees?
They can actually. If you program them, you have to like write codes about it. You can write machine learn. You can use machine learning, even artificial intelligence.
Because I have an idea, so I can make a robot and then I can train him for planting more trees. So it'll go in every space, and if there's any space, it'll plant trees.
You can definitely do that. You can train the robot to plant trees after like maybe 2 feet or 5 feet distance, and then in a row it can keep planting trees like that, like planting seeds like that. So that you can definitely do.
You should.
So why aren't we doing it now?
You should remember that just you need to train the robot not to like plant trees even on the road, because that's also space.
Yeah, definitely. But when she will work on the robot, she will train it to do it on the ground, on the soil.
Yeah.
So why aren't we doing it now?
Sorry, was that a question for me?
So why aren't we doing it now?
People are actually doing it. And as I said, even there's like vertical farming that's going on now. So instead of like horizontal on the ground, people do vertical farming. So on walls and everything, because that'll take less space. And then there are certain type of plants which like creepers and like tiny plants which sequester a lot of carbon and don't take in a lot of space. So those are going on vertically. So there are like robots planting and like watering those and taking care of them. So it is happening. It's not happening as much in India, but it's happening in some places definitely.
So, Miss, do you mean that when they are planting, they put like a pot and soil on the wall, and then that's where they plant it?
Sorry, can you repeat?
So you mean that, like, you know, where sometimes like we balance and walk, or there is space, like that's where they put soil in a pot and put it on top there and grow it on the wall like that.
That could also be a way, definitely. But what they usually do is they have like, you know, like mesh, those grids that you have in house sometimes.
Yeah.
So what they do is they can plant it onto the grids or make like a little, okay, so this is the wall and there can be like some tiny extension like this. And there can be some, you know, like kind
space
of like
for a pot.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me,
Thank
ma'am, I have a question. Ma'am, our ancestors, our grandparents, and all our family members always say that if you cut a tree, plant more than that. But ma'am, once on my Google Earth, there was a filter of checking how the Earth changed in some years, and I saw that in the olden times, the Earth was much more greener than it is now. So ma'am, I had a question. Why are people not planting more trees?
just repeat the last part? Why are people?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I was saying, why are people cutting more trees than planting more trees?
It's all about the profit, right? Like there are so many people that live here. Everyone wants actually more than what they should, right? There are people who have like multiple houses. You don't need multiple houses to live, but people want it because it's all about the money, honestly. Everyone wants to be richer. It's as simple as that, unfortunately.
Sorry, Smriti and kids, I have to wrap up. My God, I never imagined that these kids would ask you such wonderful questions, not
That's
allowing you to
amazing.
finish the presentation. But we have Noel here, our next speaker.
Question. I have another question.
Darling, before you have a question, can I have Miss Noel also speak to you guys? And Smriti, I know this is not the best vote of thanks, but thank you so much. You really learned your most.
Thank you.
Stay on. Noel is joining us from the USA. That Tanvi, you want to go ahead and introduce her? And children, I promise you, we'll give you lots of time for all your questions. I'm so glad you all are thinking and asking amazing, amazing questions.
It is really nice, definitely. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Smriti.
Sorry, Miss Tanvi, 1 second before you start.
Sure.
Miss Aditi, you need to switch the live stream.
Yes, I'll stop this live stream.
Yeah, and then start the other one. And then once